because why should they worry about defense when the United States will do it for nothing? I mean, it's crazy. Saudi Arabia, I mean, you saw what happened with Saudi Arabia. We're going through the Gulf. We have old-fashioned, obsolete minesweepers. We ask Saudi Arabia for the use of their minesweepers, which are the best made, the most modern, the best, and they say no. Who are they to tell us no? We're not going to give you our minesweepers. It's ridiculous. They're only there for the sake of us as far as that's concerned. We are protective of Saudi Arabia. They should pay for that.
Are we going to be hearing more from Mr. Trump on issues like this as we go along?
I really don't know, Larry. This is an issue that's been bothering me. It's been bothering a lot of people that I know, and I think it's an issue that had to be brought out to the fore. The concept of America financing and paying and losing lives for countries that won't even allow us to use their ships. And these are the countries that in 24 hours they'd be wiped off the face of the earth if it weren't for America. It's ridiculous.
Iran is a problem in Iraq, a problem in Syria, a problem in Lebanon, a problem in Yemen, and will be a very, very major problem for Saudi Arabia.
There is new reporting this evening after a secret U.S. mission in Yemen turned deadly. A Navy SEAL was killed, the Pentagon now revealing his identity. Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens from Illinois.
Just look at the mess our country is in, bogged down in conflict all over the place. Our hero Ryan died on a winning mission, according to General Mattis, not a failure. Time for the U.S. to get smart and start winning again.
You know, the origin of what's happening now in Yemen is the Arab Spring, which, you know, we hold was at least partly, probably mostly, maybe completely cooked up by the U.S. administration under Obama as his plan of remaking the Middle East was the plan. And what it did is really create chaos throughout the region. In 2011, as a result of the Arab Spring, Saleh was deposed. He was the leader of Yemen. And Hadi was installed as president. The people who supported Saleh and the Houthis, who are an ethnic and religious minority related to the Shia practice, but not explicitly Shia, were obviously upset about this revolution, so they joined forces in an attempt to put Saleh back. Well, the Saudis didn't like that at all. They wanted Hadi in there, and Hadi was, by the way, the one who okayed U.S. drone attacks on Yemen. So both the U.S. and the Saudis liked that. So that's the beginning of the war. The Saudis started bombing Yemen to put back their guy, and the U.S. has provided targeting, intelligence, and military equipment. 10,000 civilians have been killed thus far. The country's been decimated. But, you know, the whole idea of what's happening in Yemen, as I said earlier, is insane because on the one hand, you have the Houthis aligned with Saleh. On the other side, you have the Saudis attacking them, trying to put the other guy back in, Hadi back in. But you also have this Al-Qaeda there. Well, Al-Qaeda and the Houthis are mortal enemies. Al-Qaeda is a radical Sunni organization, as we obviously know, and the Houthis are closer to Iran and to the Shia. So you have the U.S. attacking both Al-Qaeda and then helping Saudi Arabia attack the Houthis, who are also fighting Al-Qaeda. And this is how the billions of dollars are being spent. And it would be more funny if it wasn't for the fact that 300,000 children in Yemen are without food. Half of the population, 14 million people, are not getting food. There's a terrible famine, and yet the bombs continue to fall. But, you know, Reuters, which, as you know, is pro-interventionist as it comes, you know, in these news agencies, they had a piece just a couple of months ago saying that Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen has made Al-Qaeda stronger and richer. So our allies, their actions in Yemen are helping Al-Qaeda, and we're ostensibly fighting Al-Qaeda while helping the group that's helping Al-Qaeda. Makes no sense.
And yet the Saudis are subsidizing the spread of the Wahhabi version of Islam,
yes,
which is very close to
yes,
the Islamist.
It's a little difficult to understand, I think, for Americans because they don't have access to a lot of what is available. The government has not put into one repository what the enemy has said. The Saudi government and the Wahhabists in the Saudi establishment are imperialists. They believe that ultimately the entire Muslim world or the entire world has to become Muslim, either convert, accept a kind of secondary citizenship, or just be executed. And in many ways, the Saudi government is far more dangerous to the United States than Osama bin Laden, because they pay for a type of religious education among many sections of the American Muslim community that preaches pure hatred. If we're looking for the real opponents of how we live and how we think, it's not Osama bin Laden, it's the Saudi government. And they pay enormous amounts of money around the world to educate young Muslims with that kind of attitude.
All right, we are learning more about the Trump administration's Middle East policy after Mike Pompeo headed to Turkey and Saudi Arabia this week in his first overseas visit as director of the CIA.
And so they're hoping there's a reset. I think they're hoping that they can have a closer relationship with this new administration. I think it's very important that the Saudis and this administration are on the same page. It's important to remember that just a day or so ago, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was awarded a special commendation by our CIA. So they're working very closely together. I worked very closely with them when I was ambassador, and I think this needs to continue.
Well, what an amazing piece of comedy. It's amazing that the people who witnessed this didn't fall on the floor laughing. You know, what we have here is the supremely ironic spectacle of the terrorists giving other terrorists medals for fighting against terrorism. It's actually, you know, we're living in an era in which the theater of the absurd is no longer something that you have to pay to go see at your local theater. It's in the headlines every day, and there's no better example than this. The terrorism in the world today is almost completely the product of major national governments, beginning with the U.S. and Israeli governments, and the Saudi government pretty much is up there too in the top three. The Saudis are the ones who are funding all of the Wahhabi terrorism, the Takfiri terrorism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and so on. That's all supported by the U.S. and Israel, but it's all coming out of Saudi Arabia. So giving them a medal for fighting terrorism is enough to make you not know whether to laugh or cry.
You need to help us speak these truths. Have on people like Dr. Kevin Barrett, Christopher Bolin.
All right. I appreciate your call. I mean, there you go with who you're saying I should have on. I'm not going to get into that first person you mentioned.
And it's the continuation of Obama's policy. Although I hope for changes in foreign policy, and there are hints, maybe a change in attitude toward Russia. Actually, this is probably a continuation of Obama's policy, and that's what's going on in Yemen. It was a bombing raid, and it didn't go exactly as it was supposed to. Civilians were killed, and we've stirred up a lot of trouble, a lot of people critical. And once we kill more civilians in a country like Yemen, we make more enemies. So this has been going on. This just didn't start under Trump, obviously, and it's probably was really escalated under Obama. Obama has changed the policy away from nation building, but that's Trump's policy too. The policy really hasn't changed. I think some people were a little surprised it happened so quickly, but it was already in plans. But it sort of makes my case for, I worry about, the continuation, that there's not that much difference between two parties, that foreign policy is the same, the Federal Reserve is the same, and all these sorts of things. And people get annoyed, oh no, Trump is different, Trump is different. On this issue, it's not different. It's a continuation. We have troops over there. There are bombs, and we have troops on the ground. We got an officer killed over the weekend, and the CIA is involved, and that the special forces are involved. I guess the person killed was the special forces, and trying to support this wonderful civil libertarian country, the Saudis. This is what is so crazy, and of course, no punishment to the Saudis, and their record is so bad. They're probably one of the worst when it comes to radicalism.
There is no evidence, but there is a lot of evidence about the very good work
and it's a criminal enterprise, and so many people know it. It's a criminal enterprise. Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. So I'd like to ask you right now, why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat certain groups of people so horribly? Why don't you give back the money? I think it would be a great gesture.
U.S. officials and congressional sources are indicating that the Trump administration is moving to approve a weapons sale blocked by former President Barack Obama during his final months in office. The packages for Saudi Arabia and Bahrain were held up over human rights concerns. The Washington Times reported that the deal will include a multi-billion-dollar sale of F-16 jets to Bahrain and a $300 million missile technology package for Saudi Arabia. The Pentagon and White House declined to comment. Congressional sources also stated that any resistance in the legislature will have little effect.
Brother Jim reporting here once again from Red State Watcher. Breaking news, Trump preparing to approve military sales to these two nations, and you'll never guess who. Trump is going to approve military weapons packages to Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. But isn't he supposed to be the anti-Muslim president? Well, of course he is, according to the libertards and the Democrats and the MSM and a large portion of America who's just ignorant of just listening to Donald Trump and using their brain a little bit. Unfortunately, that is true. The Trump administration is poised to move quickly to approve major weapon packages for Saudi Arabia and Bahrain that President Obama blocked during his final months in office over human rights concerns in both nations, U.S. officials and congressional sources say. And why did Obama block it? Because they were taking down his terrorists. They're fighting terrorists. If you actually read the news once in a while, liberals.
Now here's Prince Al-Walid bin Talal on Bloomberg. Listen to what he says is going to happen in the Middle East because of Donald Trump. Listen.
I think with the Trump administration, at least we will get a focused strategy, focused plan, focused policy, whereby at the end of the day, Mr. Trump will represent the United States in the whole world. And I think once he begins thinking deeply about the role of the Arab world and Saudi Arabia and its support to the United States, I think relationship will be a lot more improved between both groups, Saudi Arabia and Arab world on one side and the United States.
Boom. Relationship improved. That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. You see, this is what we have to bring to your attention. Because you're not going to see this on CNN. They would, no, goodness no. MSNBC, you think they're going to really bring you a Saudi prince declaring that Donald Trump is going to make the Middle East great again? Hell to the no. Ain't happening. But you heard it here. We got the soundbite. And now you know what to do.
Not a president who says he's neutral on Monday, pro-Israel on Tuesday, and who knows what on Wednesday, because everything's negotiable.
When I become president, the days of treating Israel like a second-class citizen will end on day one.
President Trump, rather, is dealing with a very different Saudi Arabia than President Obama was dealing with, and a Saudi Arabia that has much closer relationships with Israel and with us.
There is something common between the state of Saudi Arabia and the state of Israel which would surprise you. They are sisters. The same forces who work for the establishment of the State of Israel are the same forces who work for the establishment of the State of Saudi Arabia. The same forces who have kept Israel alive today and guaranteed Israel's security are the same forces who have kept Saudi Arabia alive today and has guaranteed Saudi Arabia's security. And when the State of Israel is to be destroyed, Saudi Arabia also goes down into the garbage bin.
Because in the long run, Judge, both Israel and Saudi Arabia are much more dangerous enemies to the United States than the Iranians are. The Iranians are a third-rate military power that we could handle very easily. But, you know, the Congress is crazy for war with Iran. Listen to Senator Graham and Senator McCain and Joe Lieberman. They're owned by the Israelis. When you look at the bottom line, who this benefits if it leads to military action against Iran, it only benefits the Israelis and Saudi Arabia. And there's a precedent for it. We've already fought 2 wars against Iraq in favor of Israeli interests and Saudi interests. So we're always being pushed to get our people killed for their interests. So I think it could happen another time. Why not?
You know, I've admired Ron Paul and known him and been a friend, I guess, for 20 years. I've been interviewing him 21 years, maybe friends the last 10. But it's not the same as it is with Trump. Trump is so fire-breathing, so energetic, so cunning, so real, and he's having results so amazing that it just makes me be endeared to Trump. I'm ready to die for Trump at this point. And I'm already ready to die for America. It's the same feeling I have for America because he is America. You're America.
Well, it was very easy. I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity and the leaders, I mean, what we have.
What is your secret? Because we don't seem to have the hang of that.
The secret is that we have America.